If you knew the speed, direction, energy states, and collision properties of the molecules of your body at t equals 0, and believe they follow the laws of physics, then you could calculate their state at t equals 1 second later. If you can go from t equals 0 to t equals 1, it follows you could go from t1 to t2, and then t3, and so on. Repeat the calculations for your body's molecules all the way to t equals 864,000 seconds, and you will know exactly where and what you will be doing in 10 days. What? Okay, you don't believe you can predict what you'll be doing in 10 days. But why? The reason is that the previous calculations, you didn't consider the molecules that are external and interacting with your body. For example, picture your spouse coming into the room and saying something to you. Her voice creates sound waves that vibrate your eardrum, which stimulates a nerve going to your brain. This alters the state of those molecules. Thus, at that point, there was a change in what you did. If you knew what your spouse was going to say, you could factor in that effect on your brain. You could then make more accurate prediction for t equals 10 days. But to get it exactly right, you would have to know the effect of all the external molecules on you. That is an impossible amount of information to gather and calculate, creating a very large math problem. But in theory, it is doable. This idea bothered me for a long time. It was the first thing that got me thinking about how I could mesh Christianity and science. The idea I was dealing with is that of the block universe. Let me explain it with a simpler system. Think about a perfect pool table. There is one white cue ball on the table, and it is going to hit 3 balls colored red, green, and blue. Each ball is a perfect sphere, and they bounce perfectly off the table's bumpers with no energy loss. Also, the table has no pockets, nor does the felt slow down the ball. It is frictionless. The cue ball starts moving at t equals 0 and exactly at 1 mile per hour. You calculate where it will be at t equals 1 second, t2, t3, and so on. The pool ball follows the laws of physics. Because they strike each other with 100% elasticity, you can also calculate where each of them will be at a chosen time in the future. Computers can calculate the path of balls on the table just as my laptop is doing here. You can pick any time in the future, and the computer can tell you the position of each ball. This is true for t equals 10 seconds or t equals 10 years. It makes sense that you can also run the clock backwards. If you start with the balls already moving on the table, knowing the speed and direction of each ball, you could calculate where they were a second prior. You can run the clock in either direction and know where they are at any point in time. Thus, from the beginning until the end, the path of each individual ball is the same. They start and end in the same place, and at any time in between, they will also be in the calculated location, no matter how many times you run the experiment back and forth. Since the balls never deviate from their predestined paths, the whole timeline is fixed. Since the history doesn't change, everything could be considered to be stuck in place. Take the example a step further and imagine the balls are in a box instead of on a pool table. The box is in space and the balls bounce off each other and the sides of the box perfectly. Like you did with the two-dimensional table, you can put this information into a computer and calculate the position, direction, and speed of each ball in the future. The laws of physics work in 3 dimensions as well as in 2. The laws also work with any number of balls. Instead of 4, you can put 40 in the box. This creates 10 times the number of calculations. However, that is still no problem for even a laptop. But for larger numbers like millions or trillions, you probably need a supercomputer and a larger box. The key point is the future position of all the balls can still be calculated no matter how many there are. Molecules are similar to theoretical pool balls. You can know their speed and direction and how they bounce off of each other too. In theory, you could put 4 or 1 trillion of them in a box and calculate their position at any later time. Although the calculations for molecules are more complicated, you can still tell their future using Newtonian physics. If you had the information for all the molecules of the universe, you could put it into a God-sized computer and know the future of everything. Thus, the paths of all molecules follow their predetermined path, and you end up with a block universe. As long as the laws of physics are in play, t equals 1 will always lead to t1, t2, t3, etc. There is no possible alternate outcome. The future is fixed. This causes a bit of a problem. It means that as the molecules of your body, those of the universe obey physics. You have no choice but to ride along. What you're thinking now was already determined by the movement of the universe's molecules a second before. The future can't deviate from the past. You thought you chose to watch this video, but it was already determined by the states of 10 to the 80th molecules and the laws of the universe a long time ago. If this is true, how do you decide anything? Is choice all an illusion? According to some scientists and philosophers, it is exactly that. You feel you are choosing chocolate ice cream over vanilla, but you're not. Your life is determined by molecules and physics from the day you were born. You were locked in from the moment of the Big Bang. Make a fist with one of your hands. Now pop up your index finger. Why did your finger go up? Because you decided to do it. Or for you rebels out there, you decided not to do it. But did you make the decision? Or was the decision because of this video? Or even what you had for breakfast? This is where science first rubbed against Christianity for me. The Bible says that you should choose Jesus. But how can you do that if you can't choose? To look at the problem in another way, how can God send a person to hell if their life was already predetermined? Philosophers and theologians have talked about the issue for many years with no simple answer. But there is an answer. It has to do with what scientists call random wave function collapses, or as I believe they are, willed wave function collapses. I'll share the idea with you in another video since there's no room here. Until then, please leave your comments and questions below, and I'll see you in the next segment. Remember, humility, thanks, and joy.